All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about set 48, which is on radical equations. So if we look here, this equation has a radical in it. We need to get it isolated first, and then we need to get rid of the radical. So when I say we need to isolate it, we need to make sure that on whatever side has the radical, there's not a plus or minus or multiply by or divide by anything outside of the radical. It can be underneath the radical, but just not outside of it. So in this example, we have gotten that isolated. There's nothing outside of it that we need to take care of. So to get rid of a radical, we know we square. And if we square something, we square on the other side. So that's going to cancel, and we're left with 4 equals 2b. Now we've eliminated our radical, and it's just become a regular old equation. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides, and I get b equals 2. Can always check my answer by plugging it back in. So if I plug it back in here, 2 times 2 gives me 4, square root of 4 gives me 2. All right, so if we look here, our square root is not isolated. This plus 4 is not included underneath the radical. So minus 4. So we need to get rid of that. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. So this is going to eliminate. Negative 2 plus 4 gives us 2 equals the square root of a. Okay, so our a is the only thing that's under the square root. We're going to square both sides, and we get 4 equals a. All right, so if I double check this and I plug it back in, I have a um, square root of 4 gives me 2. 2 minus 4 gives me negative 2. So my answer works out. All right, let's take a look here. My square root is not isolated. I have that positive 3 there, so I'm going to subtract 3 to both sides. And 7 minus 3 gives me 4 equals the square root of n. Now let's take a moment here and just talk about something briefly. It's worked out in the previous problems that we've done that every time we isolate the square root, whatever we have on the other side ends up being a positive, which is great. We want that. If we ever end up with it being a negative, it is not possible. We cannot have the square root of something equal a negative. It is absolutely not going to work out. Okay, so back to our problem. We're going to square both sides to eliminate the radical. And so n equals 16. Plug it back in to just double check. So we plug 16 in there. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 plus 3 gives us 7. Good. All right, now notice this one looks a little bit different. We have something else underneath the radical, but again, our radical is already isolated for us. So I'm going to square both sides, and that cancels. So 4 equals v plus 8. I'm going to subtract 8 to each side, and negative 4 equals v. Now it's okay that my answer equals negative, because let's plug it back in and check. Negative 4 plus 8 gives me 4. Square root of 4 gives me 2. So my answer works out. It's okay to have a negative answer. It's just not okay to have a radical equal a negative. Okay, go ahead. I want you guys to try this one. I'm going to pause my video here, and I'm going to do it out, and pause yours, and then come back and check and see how yours compares to mine. All right, so I ended up with 88. How does yours work? Let's check it. 88 minus 7 gives us 81. The square root of 81 is 9. Excellent. All right, now this one has a radical and has something outside the radical. So we're just going to isolate. So don't let its length scare you. So 14 minus 6 gives us 8. So x minus 8 is still all under the square root. So to eliminate my square root, I'm going to square both sides. So 64 equals x minus 8. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And so 64 plus 8 gives me 72 equals x. Go ahead and plug that in. 72 minus 8 gives me 64. Square root of 64 is 8 plus 6 is 14. Excellent. I think we got about one more here. Yep. All right, so I'm going to isolate my radical. So notice the plus 4 is outside, so I'm going to subtract 4 to both sides. And then I end up with 5 minus 4, which gives me 1. And I'm going to go ahead and square both sides to eliminate my radical. So n plus 2, 1 squared gives me 1, minus 2 on each side, n equals -1. Again, it's okay to have a negative answer. Plug it back in to double check. -1 plus 2 gives me 1. The square root of 1 is 1. 1 plus 4 gives me 5. So that works great for us. Go ahead and give set 48 a try. And remember that it's going to be due in a couple of days. See you guys then.